Welcome, friends, to Inks and Issues, a podcast where we discuss comics in a book club style format. My name is Jonah Gregory, and Pledged is Pledged.
And I'm really, really smelly, and old women keep trying to steal me in the forest. It's me, Kieran Bennett.
I like to eat babies. It's me, Nika.
Hey, welcome to the show, Nika.
Thanks for having me. I feel like maybe our topic today is very on the nose, and I appreciate it, and I love it.
So we have special guests, as you, I hope, gathered by now, or you might need to rewind a few seconds. It's Nika Howard from all kinds of cool, You want to list a few of them?
Sure. Greetings Adventures, formerly Drunks and Dragons. Winter Crest, if you like angsty teenage monsters, or Love to Hate, where you can find things I love and hate. I feel like there's other ones, but
I'm sure.
Sayer with you, yes, Jonah.
I was gonna say we go way back. Yeah, we both wrote for the first couple seasons of Sayer. Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, we've been trying to have you on, and scheduling between 3 time zones always a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel real proud of us. We did it. We finally did it. We got a day.
We
and
only
a time.
had to cancel twice.
Yes, that's not bad.
I feel like both of them were my fault. At least one of them. But I want to say...
You don't have to take the blame for that.
We don't cast blame here. We don't cast blame here.
No. We cast pods. So...
Oh, get out
of here.
I will show myself out. But today we're talking about Wytches, spelled with a Y. This is a book I had never heard of. So, Nika, you picked the book. So, you want to tell us what drew you to this one?
So sometimes I like to go into a bookstore or comic store or really any place and ask the person who's working there what's their favorite blank. And I went down to our local comic shop, and I went in there and I was talking to the owner, and he's like, well, what are you looking for? And I was like, I don't really know. I don't have anything in mind, but I would love a horror comic. And he pointed me to a couple, and some of them were like graphic novels. And then he's like, yeah, and you might like this one too. It's Wytches. It's kind of weird, kind of like cool, spooky stuff. And I was like, okay, let's buy it. So I did, and I love it. And now there's only one volume forever.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And we'll get into why as we go through. So, Kieran, I know you said there were no real fun facts for this one. So do you want to just give us the rundown of who made this book?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the art is by Jock, which is just the guy's name, and written by Scott Snyder, who we've reviewed quite a bit of his work on the show before. I think he did Zero Year, and he also did DC Metal. Have we reviewed any of his other stuff before? I'm trying to think.
I'm sure somewhere in there.
Yeah, probably.
So you're saying some ups and downs, but but overall we come away feeling positive.
Oh yeah.
His stuff. All right. Well, I guess we will just jump right in then. So issue 1 opens in 1919. A young woman is trapped inside a tree, as you do, and pleads for her son to free her. He asks why she's in the tree, and she says she was pledged. So he hits her with a rock and says that pledged is pledged, and she's dragged into the tree.
What a good opening. I really like this.
Yes, I try to think about everything, or like whenever I'm reading stuff like this. I know it's a comic and it has the pictures there for you, but I try to think about it like as a movie going on in my head. Yeah. And what an amazing opening scene for a horror movie where you come in and you just like hear the screams of this woman, and then you see her son and like bashes her head with a rock, fade to black, pledged is pledged. Great. I think it's really strong. I know we're like, the first page in. I love it.
It's
so
a good
excited.
opening.
Yeah.
Also, I should note her nose has been bit off, apparently. That's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
it's
like
very graphic.
There's like a panel where like her son is like pledged is pledged. And then there's a panel where she's like staring out of this hole in the tree with this like horrified expression on her face. And there's like this hand kind of like wrapped around her face. And it just like the visual of her face looking out of the tree is really creepy.
Yeah.
it definitely sets the tone incredibly well in a very short amount of time. So that's how we start off. And then I also liked it shifts in art a bit, like the style and coloring changes a little bit to reflect the no longer in the creepy ass woods where things are very like sketchy and dark and kind of hard to tell what's happening, like purposely.
Yeah.
To the outside normal day-to-day stuff. So we flash forward to 2014. So I assume that's when this book came out. Or thereabouts. We meet Sale and her dad Charles, and they're waiting for the bus. He is trying to distract her with fantasy stories because, you know, like any good teen, Sale has incredible anxiety problems. I mean, don't we all?
Yeah.
Can't relate at all.
No, totally unrelatable. After Sale gets picked up, Charles heads back inside and says to his wife Lucy that he's worried they already know about Sale. But we're like, what could that mean?
What could that possibly mean?
It's so ominous.
Mysteries.
A new a teen in a new city with a secret. Sounds like there's a story there.
Yeah.
It's a shame the book ends right there and you never find out what happens.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh, and also, I know this isn't an anime show, but she also is the only character to have color in her hair.
Yes.
So, like, of course, you know she's the main character.
Huh. You know, I never noticed that. I never thought of that.
Yeah, when she goes to school, there's like one person that she talks to who just has like brown hair. Everyone else is like just blonde or brown or black, and she just has like this orange hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can pick her out in the crowd easier.
Exactly.
A lot of the comic has very muted colors or like very monochromatic in its art, except for red. Like red shows up a lot more like blended into things and in the background, I feel like, than a lot of other colors besides black. Black's in like all of it. It's very dark. I just thought that was like really cool that like she has this like very vibrant red hair, and that's like a very main color throughout the whole story.
Yeah, no, it's very effective throughout. So yeah, as she's on her way to school, the bus passes through the woods and a figure in the trees simply says pledge. So it's all coming together. I mean, it's only been like 5 pages, but it's all coming together. So meanwhile, Charles is working on his incredibly successful line of books that are very much not Harry Potter. And this is the second or third book we've read with not Harry Potter.
Yeah. Were you also getting very like unwritten vibes from this?
At first, but then it got much better.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. Sorry, unwritten, but good.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it gets better, but you know, whatever. So he's on the phone with his literary agent, exposition. And then we find out that Lucy suffered some sort of accident and she's now bound to a wheelchair. And then the family moved. And then a deer shows up in the house. Why? I don't know. Was that setting something up? I forget. You tell me.
It was weird. I think that it was supposed to be, related to the witches, but I don't know
the whole deer thing.
Yes.
I think it's just
I know that
creepy.
comes back around. Okay. I mean, I have deer show up in my yard all the time. And if
Yeah,
one of them was in my house, I would be like, holy shit, how did this get in my house?
I was going to ask, like, I don't live somewhere where there are deer. I live in the middle of the city. Nika, I don't know what kind of environment you live in, but Jonah, I know
live near deer.
Okay, well, there we go. So I can ask you both. Does this happen?
No, absolutely not. The only thing they will run to is in front of your car. That's it. Other than that, they just stay in the woods or the shoulder of the road. Mm-hmm. But they don't come into your house.
Just waiting for a car.
Yeah, they do. They just wait.
They're so aware of their surroundings, you know, for survival and all. Like, they will actually watch us watching them through the window. So, like, I wouldn't expect that they would want to come into a house because that's like nothing but danger zone in their mind, I would imagine, because they're like in a confined space.
Like, you could lure them in.
Yeah.
But it would not just come in itself.
Yeah. This is all
You
just
could
a
lure a
setup.
deer into your house, but why the fuck would you want to?
Yeah. It would only end in tragedy. Did you not see Tommy Boy when the deer wakes up in his car?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
How
so
was your
deer
day?
aside,
Great. I made a really terrible mistake, though.
I can
I
never
thought
go home.
it'd be funny. Yeah, the deer owns my house now.
Yeah. He owns
He
my
made
house.
me
He's
sign
married to
over
my
the
wife, and he has
deed.
my children. I'm just going to leave.
All right, so back to this first issue. We got to
Yes.
make some progress on this issue. So,
sorry.
No, you're all good. Sale is at school. Everything seems to be going well until some other kid asks her, "Did you kill that girl or not?" So we're like, "What? Her mysterious past?" So we flash back to a girl named Annie, who is not a nice person.
She's not
She's
great.
awful.
She may be the worst human
I would
being.
call her a bitch.
Uh-huh.
She's very, very mean.
Yeah, so it sounds like this has been an ongoing her bullying Sale thing to the point where Sale's like, "Hey, I got a knife," and then Annie's like, "Oh, well, I have a gun," and she tries to get her to strip, and it's very weird and creepy.
Yep.
And then Annie is pulled into a tree, and her body's folded in half, and it's horrifying.
Oh my God, that's so horrifying.
Yeah, and then we get this flashes back to reality. The deer that's been in the house starts vomiting blood, and it's like a whole thing. It's a giant mess.
It's so weird. Like I don't get what it's supposed to be, but it's kind of rad.
Loss of innocence, murder of something young and beautiful. I don't know. It's
What
weird.
if it's supposed
One
to be? Is this a spoiler if I say something that happens at the end now?
I don't think so.
Or is it okay? Okay.
Well, this is a
So-
book club style
Okay.
podcast. So if you haven't read the whole thing, that's on you, I guess, if you're listening.
Don't listen to this if you haven't read the whole thing.
No, I mean, unless you don't care, it's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't tell people to not listen to our show, Nika. Come
No,
on.
well, that's fair. That's fair.
Is
Okay.
Nika doing a reverse promo?
So what if the deer is like a sign from the witches to the mom saying that the pledge didn't work, and that's why she the deer coughs up this like blood? Because does the deer die after, or does it just like it runs out of the house, right? Or does it just die?
I think later on he says something like, "What the hell do you think was wrong with that poor bastard anyway, Luce?" And she's like, "I don't know. There are a lot of diseases deer can catch around here. The woods are full of horrors." So I don't think it's really made clear if it dies or not. I feel like it died.
Probably. But that would be my guess, is that
I'm
maybe it's
reviewing
like
the
a sign
tapes
to
right
her.
now, and what I'm finding is it's not that it coughs up blood; it's that it bites its own tongue off.
Oh.
Yes, I'm also reviewing the tapes, and I would agree with that conclusion that it is biting off its own tongue.
So that's even more messed up. So back to the regular old day-to-day grind.
Oh, yeah.
That night, Sale tells her dad that Annie's disappearing was actually her fault, and that she wished so hard for it to happen that it happened. And of course, he's like, "Oh, that's just, kid stories. You're just feeling guilty and stuff." So she tries to go to sleep, but this horrible creature starts calling her name on the branches of a tree outside. And she screams because,
That's what one would do.
Oh, yeah.
that's the normal and justifiable reaction to that. And then her dad, Charles, comes running into the room, and that's the end of the first issue. So, Kieran,
Yes?
what did you think of this first issue?
Yeah, it was great, eh? It was real good. I think I mentioned something similar to this when we reviewed Uzumaki, actually, with Kim and Ben Stonek, where I said, I don't often find comics very scary or creepy. Mm-hmm. I can find them many other things, but I don't generally find them scary or creepy. There was some stuff in this first issue that I was like, that's really messed up, and I am rendered uncomfortable by reading this.
Yeah.
Like the body's folding in half, going into the tree, and the deer biting off its own tongue was, it's gnarly. But it's really good. That was all I was going to say.
I think a lot of, and maybe it's harder. I personally think it's harder in a comic form to be scary, just because by nature, or at least in my experience of reading them, you kind of like just look at the whole page. Like if I turn the page, I kind of like just look at all of it, but I try not to spoil it. So I feel like you kind of catch glimpses of things that might make reading comics less scary, but I feel as if the art style and the story does a good job of kind of ramping up and being surprisingly or graphic in surprising moments. Like I've never read of anything where a deer bites its tongue off. So it's not a moment you're expecting.
Sure.
So you're just like, oh, what is going on? You know,
can confirm that is not normal deer behavior.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so.
They just have moments throughout the whole comic that I think are really good about keeping the reader on guard of what's going to happen. And the story also, like the friend was like, oh, did you really kill her? How does she know? No, that's big news, but how? Unless there's like a reason, how? So I think it starts these questions in the reader early in the story that then play out throughout the rest of the issues that I think is done really well.
I would agree with you. I do think it is hard to hit those heightened moments like a movie. It has an easier time doing.
Yeah.
But this one is very affecting to the point where it was like, okay, this is a book I have to read where I can't have the kids accidentally like come up behind me and see anything in this book because I have no idea what's around the next corner being, you know, like the next page. Like, yeah. Most books I'm still like, it's fine. Like most of it's totally fine. There's just a few pages I'll have to look around real quick to make sure, you know, they're not looking over my shoulder. This one I made sure I read where they could not see anything because I was just so like, okay, it's going to be like this, is it?
Oh, this is how you want to play it, huh?
It's almost like jump scare moments in horror movies, but translated to a comic.
Yeah.
And you're like,
a good way to put it.
Ooh, no one else can see this that's not over the age of whatever an appropriate age to see blood and gore is.
Like 15, 16.
10.
Yeah.
I mean, 15, 16.
I mean, I know there's people out there that start getting into horror way younger than that, but not me. It took me many a year before I was okay with horror.
For me, it was like 22.
Same. Yep, same. Oh. It took me into my 20s because it was just like, too much. Gotta go. All right. So, Kieran, do you want to take issue 2 for us?
I would love to. So Charles is trying to put together a chair for Lucy to go up and down the stairs, being in a wheelchair. And Reg, his agent, is around and he snaps at him. He apologizes and explains that what happened the night before. Something broke the window in Sale's room and bit her on the neck. And now Sale has this nasty-ass lump in her neck.
So gross.
It's super gross. I do really like the lump though, because I am a big fan of some gross body horror. It's good.
It is, yeah. With the art, they kind of have they allude to this because they have a couple of different scenes where it's a nondescript person, but then there's like an eye in their neck, or like there's just really weird, gross things like that. And so then she's like, "Oh, I've got this bump in my neck," and you're like, "Oh, it's a witch's mark." Or, you know, whatever, like, oh, it's this, like, thing that's going to pop out of her neck. It starts that, like, your mind starts racing about what is going on.
Oh, yeah.
Was it a Dracula? I mean.
Yeah, like, it doesn't even, like, the whole, like, lump in her neck sort of thing doesn't really, like, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't explode or anything later. And it doesn't, like... I don't want to say it doesn't pay off because that sounds unfair, but like it doesn't come up in like a really massive way later and, you know, totally changes.
It's a red herring.
It's that anticipation of like, what is it and what is it going to do and how is it going to like, you know, is it going to fucking like sprout an arm or something? Like you don't know what's going to happen.
It also, I think it plays into that fear that I know a lot of us have about, just random weird medical stuff popping up out of nowhere where it's like, oh, you have this weird growth on your neck and it could be nothing or you might be dying. Like, who knows? And I think it just kind of played into that really
it's that
heavily.
Anxiety.
Yes. Of not knowing what it is. And I think that was a very effective tool in the trade of a horror comic writer like this, to have something like that's kind of weirdly normal in a normal in like a real world setting, to have this weird thing start growing on your neck, but then twisting that into the like horror fantasy thing of like, but is it witches? Because they're in the name of this book.
So anyway, at school, Sale is trying out for the swim team, determined to ignore the spooky cancer on her neck. But before she dives into the water, the figure from the night before stares at her through the window. She dives in anyway and is overwhelmed by visions of the wood, and the lump on her neck turns into an eye. She flees from the pool and runs towards the school bus, as you would. Meanwhile, Lucy, which is her mum, is in hospital where she works, asking a young boy who's been in an accident how he's feeling. The boy asks if she was in an accident as well, and she's like, yeah, I hit a deer with my car. And the boy goes, cool. What did you really hit? Because you smell like someone near you has been pledged.
Oh.
I had to giggle at this moment because I don't know if you guys use it, but we use Pledge
yep.
to oil our furniture. And it has like a very distinct smell. So I was like, damn, this boy's like calling her out for having some shiny dust-free furniture. Yeah. Like, back off her coffee table, kid.
He's just like,
or maybe
you've been polishing your wood floors lately?
Yeah, or maybe the witches just love to like polish their trees.
Yeah. The witches love to just kind of like pour it on the floor, and then they just slip and slide around in their socks.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That sounds great.
So as Sale is zooming down the road in her freshly stolen bus, Charles hears something and goes upstairs to investigate. Surely nothing bad will happen to him. While Charles climbs the stairs, Sale and Reg, who saw her driving the bus, wander into the woods while Sale yells like a crazy person. She's quickly proven to be not crazy as the actual witches themselves show up and loom threateningly. Whilst the looming is happening, a woman ambushes Charles and says, "You never had a daughter," and blows some powder in his face. And that's the end of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
This issue, I think, was starting to... It's like he took like a toothpick and just kind of jammed it under my nail and went, hey... You don't like this, do you? Well, what about this? And then you twisted it. And it's like, okay, so you're bringing in the parental stuff of your child being attacked and then just really digging that in with someone being like, hey, I'm going to try and mess with your mind and convince you never had a kid. And I'm like, yeah, that's not okay at all. So yeah, this I found a pretty affecting, although her stealing the bus, I did laugh because I'm like...
What?
Like, is she even old enough to drive? Do we get her age? Come on now.
Well, apparently she is, because she makes it there. She makes it into the woods. She does crash it at the very end.
Sure.
But
how do we know the woods aren't 20 feet away from the school?
Yeah, the woods are just like across the road.
Yeah.
And she just immediately crashes. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I did have my niece and nephew drive around on my riding mower today, and I'm like,
oh, gosh.
Teens that don't know how to drive yet, driving a school bus? I don't know about that. But overall, yes, good issue. Liked it. Dug under the nail for me a bit, though, and that's only going to get worse as we progress through this story.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Nika, how did you feel?
Like they wrote it
on the second one.
I kind of liked it. I think that after the first issue, this one was a little weaker for me.
That's fair.
And I think maybe because I don't have that like parental pull, so I feel like maybe this issue hits harder on some things that like you have, Jonah, that maybe don't for me. Like for me, I thought that there were more gaps in the narrative for this. Like it just jumps from Charles to Sailor to Lucy. And, like, there doesn't seem to be much cohesion between each character's scenes. I think, like, Lucy has the most, because she just has the one, contained scene that gives the most to the story overall. and then the very end with Charles. But like Sailor scene, she's at school, she's swimming, then she's just stealing a bus. Like, I don't know. There was just a couple things that like were disconnected for me. So I thought it was a good one, but I thought overall maybe a little weaker of an issue for me.
I respect that.
That's totally fair. Totally fair. It does start, I think, to jump around more. Like, I think as the book progresses, there's points at which it feels a little more dreamlike as far as the logic goes.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of a horror thing.
Yeah,
like
I think it's a
media
definite
has
choice,
that.
considering like how the witches operate, like how we learn how they operate.
But also, I think they were just trying to rush to like, okay, we need to get them to the woods to get to this next story arc or part of the story. So yeah, that's totally fair.
Like, I can get it. I get why they did it. I can
Sure.
still see the holes to me.
Sure. That's totally fair. Do you want to take issue 3 for us?
Sure. So issue 3 is going back to the, I guess, present future, a couple hours into the future, as Charles and Lucy are searching for Sail in the woods. Everyone is being like very like stereotypical, classical, like, oh, just don't worry about it. They probably just ran away. As soon as they get in the woods for a little bit, they'll come back. Totally nothing wrong with your teenage daughter stealing a bus, running into the woods like a crazy.
Yeah, like it's totally fine. It is all good, my dude. Just go home.
It's that classic teen rebellion.
And then the cop tries to gaslight Charles and tell him that there was no woman at his house. Nothing happened. He's kind of like, he got hit on the head, and that's what all of these issues are. And he probably should just, sit down and have some water.
Yeah. He's like, why don't you just drink some water? It's like, no.
And I was getting so frustrated, which I feel like this is maybe the sign where you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, like people are in on this because everyone is so chill. Like most parents, I feel, would just be going bonkers if their kid stole a bus and vanished into the woods. And just the fact that like the cops and all the people are like, it's fine, no big deal. Like, is this not a world where children are snatched every day? Like, what's going on here?
Also, running into the woods in general without like equipment and stuff is a real easy way to seriously injure or kill yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like a real big concern. I don't know what area of the country this takes place in, but I'm guessing the woods are pretty much the same everywhere in that regard.
Oh, they did say, which I thought this was interesting. They were talking about the woods, about it being destroyed by like Hurricane Sabrina or something, which then made me think of Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yes, I did notice that.
So I was wondering, I was like, well, shit, maybe this is like by Greendale, Riverdale area. This is like right up Sweetwater River.
That's why they haven't done the second volume. They're waiting to get the rights to Riverdale.
So they're going to cross it over with the Strange Adventures of Sabrina comic or whatever they've been doing.
Oh my God. I'm into it. If that's, or maybe the like volume 2, because Sabrina doesn't have a volume 2 either. So maybe volume 1 of Sabrina is really volume 2 of Witches with a Y.
You cracked it.
That's it.
Damn. So like we're saying this is a joke, but I'm like, actually, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, I'd take it.
If someone actually was able to pull that off, man, they would have my eternal respect.
And a lot of my dollars.
Also,
sure.
There was one scene for like 2 pages. There is a little flashback for issue 3 where they're at a like playground area, and it's Lucy, Charles, and Sailor, and they're kind of like trying to overcome this fear like of the dark and trying to make a point like they can get together, and they've got this match that they light, and there's a little like back and forth, and it's just like it's a scene that's really specific and touching of like a family coming together. And so I just remember reading the scene and thinking, oh, something's gonna happen later, like this is foreshadowing. But then the very last part is Sailor blows out the match and Charles lights another one, and she's gone. And next like in there with them is a witch that just says sailor.
It's creepy.
It's creepy. So then they're back into the woods. Sorry. Everyone tells him that he's crazy. Flash to the woman choking Charles on the floor in Sailor's room and talking to him about the witches and explaining to him a little bit about what is going on. She also whips out her titty.
Both of them, in fact.
She's not shy about covering them or anything, I guess. Actually, no, there's some more titty stuff that happens. This one was pretty gross. This one was the toothpick under the fingernails for me.
That's fair.
But she takes out this huge needle, stabs herself and stabs him, and tells him that after time, he's going to forget his daughter whenever the witches actually come to take her. And then tells Charles to find her whenever he's finally ready, at which point she stabs him with the needle. So then we go back to Charles in the woods, where he tells everyone, you know, blow me, leave me alone, that kind of thing. And he goes wandering into the woods. And
everyone just loves wandering off into the wilderness these days.
Yeah.
I mean, I would. This would be fun. This would be great until the trees start talking to you, which is what Charles runs into. He starts to hear these like whimperings of help, and then he turns the corner to see a mouth in a tree.
God, it's so creepy.
Of his brother. You get these nice little bits of small art paintings that are just body parts, an eye, a mouth with like broken teeth and like blood everywhere. And Reg is trying to basically like plea with Charles to get him out, save him. So Charles picks up a rock, goes to destroy the tree, where the cop comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And whenever Charles tells him, cop thinks that he's crazy and was like, "There's shit, dog can't even fit in that hole. You think there's a person in there?" Basically playing into more that he's hurt and fucked up and everything like that.
Classic gaslighting cop man.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me so mad. Nothing makes me more upset than awful gaslighting. So then later that night, well, I don't know if it's later that night, but then the comic does show us a page of Sailor's diary, which is written very oddly.
Mm-hmm.
And it outlines her being able to hear this horrible screaming and crying and having these awful dreams, this like fear coming from the woods, and also being able to feel this like, I want to say it's like a power, because she doesn't know what it is with the lump, but it's just like, I think that it's starting to get its grip on her, and there's like this power emanating out of it that she's very aware of. So then next cuts back to Charles and Lucy going home. Lucy's upset because Charles is acting erratic. He's also been accused of drinking, which we come to find is an issue that he has been working on. So they come back, they cry out for Sailor, but of course still not there. So then we learn, there's a little flashback, and we learn that in the past, whenever they were at the playground doing like the little match hiding thing, Lucy was pregnant, and we don't ever hear anything else about that little baby. What do you think happened to that baby, guys?
Interesting.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. So cut back to the future or present time. Charles is upstairs getting ready to take a nervous shit.
Who wrote that?
Yeah. And he is pulling up his shirt, and in like varicose veins, it says "here" on him. And it's right by where he was stabbed. So you know the bald lady is the one behind it. Mm-hmm. So he pulls out his phone, pulls out a map, and he finds Here Point, which is right next to the coast. And that is where he believes Sailor is.
Well.
Yeah. We also see Sailor getting dragged down into underground tunnels, right? That was
yeah. Very last one. She lights a match because one thing he always says, or she always says, is it she or he? Charles or Sailor say that you should always have matches on you, or else you won't be able to survive the zombie apocalypse. I do really like this like fun little game that they have to become less anxious about things. I appreciate like the little banter of it, and I think that it's a nice way to add a little bit of like comedy to an otherwise very dark and serious story.
Yeah, and it also like it really adds like a very nice dimension to their relationship as well, rather than just being like just a father and daughter relationship. They have like kind of this thing that is very unique to their relationship, which I really liked.
Yeah. What did you guys think of this issue?
This one, it's very like strange to follow what's happening. I would say like it feels very kind of disjointed, but I think on purpose because it's starting to set up basically the pushing you towards the ending of where this book is going. It's only 6 issues in this volume, and apparently ever. So this is the point at which you're like, okay, we're setting up a lot of the lore and stuff is going to be it's starting to come in like hard and heavy, but this is kind of just starting the ball rolling in that direction, I would say. So like, I feel like I kind of just flew through this one because there's like so much of it's just like bits and pieces of a bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely.
So it didn't quite hit me as the same as the other ones. And I also was thinking like the art in this, it starts to get a little more of that disjointed, purposely kind of sketchy and like weird color blotches on the page.
Yeah,
and stuff.
there's
like that just becomes like the norm, whereas before it was like reserved for only when like the witches were actually in the background of pages and stuff.
Yeah, there's like these like paint splotches and like watercolor splashes over the top of everything.
You mean like blood spatter?
God, perhaps. But it looks really cool, and it's also like it does make everything kind of vaguely unsettling as well. Especially because like I feel like the light and the shadow work in the art is also really on point as well. So like sometimes you'll have panels that are like bits of it will be really, really bright, which in some ways makes it like even creepier, which, you know, is interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a few panels where it makes it a little hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
But overall, I get what they were going for with the effect. I mean, some panels kind of look like you spilled your Fruit Loops on it, but for the most part, I think it worked really well.
I think what you, how you described it was really nice. Like it makes it feel like a dream. Like you don't know what's real or what maybe you are imagining it from getting hit in your head or having God knows whatever blown in your face or stabbed with something, you know? So like maybe Charles is becoming an unreliable narrator. And I think that that's a nice way to show that through just the art itself.
Maybe that Wilford Brimley ass looking cop was, on the money and wasn't trying to gaslight him at all.
But he sucks butts.
He does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into issue 4 then. We're going to dig into this weirdness further with the map and everything. So Charles decides to head into Here Coast to find this woman that he thinks, attacked him and drugged him and whatnot. So he tells his wife, I'm going to go find her and see what's going on. And she's like, you're crazy. This is like, why would you go after this random person that you say attacked you? Like, that sounds like a real bad idea.
Yeah.
But, Charles, he's stubborn and also, missing child and all. So he goes and decides to try and track her down with the map that's now like embedded on his stomach. Like you said, in varicose veins.
Yeah.
But he's he said he'll, keep looking for Sale no matter what. And meanwhile, we see that Sale has now been trapped underground, and there's a pile of used clothes that she lands on when she falls down into that weird underground area, which is just like super extra disturbing because it's just the implication that there's been so many people that have, like, I guess, been eaten by these weird tree monster things that there's just a tall enough pile where she can almost like climb back out.
It's almost like in It Chapter 1, whenever they get down and there's just the pile of all of the toys and everything from the kids that Pennywise has taken in the past.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. Yeah. And I liked that.
Good comparison. Yeah. So back on Here Coast, which that name, come on now. Charles finds the woman that he's looking for, and she points a gun at him, forces him to hang up a noose, and tells him that Sale has been marked by the Wytches. Wytches are supernatural creatures that steal away people and eat them. People exchange other people for favors from the Wytches. And it's, as Kieran put in the notes, they rub pledge on them and then the Wytches take them away. I'm sure he's playing on the pledge thing we already goofed on. So she tells them to take what's under the sink and find someone who deals with the Wytches, which most of the town, by the looks of it, has, some sort of stake in this whole Wytches taking people and giving you favors in return. So basically he wants to go find someone that will tell him what's happening with Sale and where she went. But says that she has been infected with these mites by the Wytches and it's going to make her want to kill herself. So she ends up hanging herself, and that's a very, very messed up scene. So this book has to come with a real big trigger warning for suicidal stuff because of this scene right here. And it was pretty intense. Not what I was expecting this scene to shake out like. Like you expect her to be like, put your neck in the noose and blah, blah, blah. But no, it's like, hey, set up this noose so that I can hang myself. Yeah, it was weird. And then Charles, he gets back home and tells Lucy, we need to save Sale, and that he's like kind of figuring out what's going on. And her response is, who's Sale? Dun, dun, dun. So issue 4 ends with quite the cliffhanger. So Nika, what did you think of issue 4?
I liked it. In that I do feel like it is a tentative like it, because they also have the story kind of what happened to Sailor, like what happened between Sailor and Charles, basically like his drinking problem. They have a scene here that explains that, and I didn't like that scene in general. He's pushing her to climb higher and higher on this Ferris wheel to overcome her fear because that's what he did. And I didn't like that because that's like very awful and abusive to have your kid do that. But I liked how they mirrored that with Sailor now is trying to get out of the burrow and out of the like Wytches tunnels, and so she's like basically using this almost the same verbiage of what he had said to her that night at the Ferris wheel to like motivate her to get up. She's like, no, you can go higher, you can do this. So I thought that was a weird, like almost like ownership that she was taking of a shitty situation and coming out better on the other side. And then to have like this moment, like the scene right before Lucy says, who's Sailor, there's like this moment of Sailor almost falls and die. Well, I assume she would die off
she
of
would
the
100%
Ferris
die.
wheel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
she would be pasted upon the ground.
Yeah. Charles catches her and is like, Sailor, I've got you. It's going to be fine. And so like, there's just that like very strong emotional moment. And the next page, her mom's completely forgotten who she is. So it's like her dad is her last chance, her only chance. So I thought, like, while I didn't like what happened, I liked the way they used that and then mirrored her growth and everything in it.
Yeah, I could have very much done without that whole subplot of like why does he have to have this past of being like a bad dad?
Yeah.
Like he could just have been a good dad. Like that was an option when they were
Yeah.
writing this character.
He didn't need to be like a tormented soul kind of thing.
Yeah.
I understand why they made him a bad dad so that he can then kind of have the moment later where he's like, I'm not the way that I used to be. And now, despite the difficulty and the danger to myself, I'm going to be there for my daughter. But why his bad dad past had to involve a fairground, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, it was
well,
weird.
I think that's like supposed to be then the story that he's writing, because the story about the kid and like he's got the Ferris wheel tattoo and everything.
Oh,
on his
isn't
arm.
it supposed to be like his fake Harry Potter book's like a abandoned amusement park that's full of magic or something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Which is fine. But
But don't make your kid try and climb the side of a Ferris wheel.
I get the connection that now exists, but why? Like, because he goes to the Ferris wheel to drink because it's like, I think it's something to do with like his dad or something. But it's like, why? Why was this the choice that they made? It's
beer tastes better when you're 200 feet in the air.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, I should have realized that. My bad.
Yeah, Kieran, come on.
Yeah, I would agree with Nika in that I liked the issue because the whole kind of like lore dump essentially about the witches I thought was really interesting. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And like I enjoy them like as monsters, as creatures. But like the whole thing with Sale climbing the Ferris wheel, I was like, cool, fine, whatever. But like I want to know more about the witches. Like this is what you're telling me about now. Stop interrupting and get back to the witches.
It's like someone's telling you a real interesting story about their day, but then they go on a tangent about how they also had to go pick up groceries.
Yeah.
You're like, no, get back to your day.
Yeah. And they're like, no. So then I picked up some mustard and I was going to pick up some ketchup, but, I didn't really.
Okay.
Like, shut up.
I know you use that as a non-interesting example, but my first thought was, what type of mustard? Was it spicy?
Yeah,
was
to be fair, I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, and he said that he went to the supermarket, and I asked him, "What did you pick up from the supermarket?" So
Oh
Sorry,
my God.
bad example.
Yeah, no, bad example.
We love grocery shopping.
I stand corrected. All right, let's get into issue 5 then.
All right.
Kieran?
Yeah. So Charlie is understandably very upset that Lucy has forgotten their daughter. So the cop man shows up and is all like, hey, whoa now, easy there, buddy. Let's de-escalate the situation.
Let's all have some Quaker Oats and settle in.
But Charlie's like, hang on a second, and like has a look at a list of names of people in cahoots with the witches that was given to him by the woman from issue 4. And he's like, Cop Man is on the list. And so he whips out a gun and forces him to take him to the burrow entrance, which is where the witches live. So while they walk there, the cop is just like full like cartoon villain being like, you'll never save Sale. The witches are too powerful, which is great. And he says that the witches they can smell selfishness and greed, and that's kind of like they're almost like attracted to that, and so people like them.
Also what the Rock is cooking.
It is also what the Rock is cooking.
That I mean, they can smell it is what I'm saying.
Right. They're the answer to the question. So he basically says that like people will make bargains with the witches, and so like they'll exchange people for favors and that kind of stuff. And Charlie does the only reasonable thing and hits him with a gun.
Well, yeah.
And not just hits him, but like really deforms his face.
Oh yeah, he like fucks him up. So in the past, Lucy lies in the hospital after her accident, and Charlie tries to comfort Sale, but she's like, you just fucking made me climb a Ferris wheel. Get the fuck out of here. And she kind of pushes him away. And so we come back to the prison, and the cop man tells Charlie that even though he has something to disguise his scent with, because that's how the witches find you, and he also has these flares to blind the witches and special bullets that are apparently full of rats, which was interesting.
Yeah, because animal protein is apparently different than human protein.
Apparently so.
And the witches can't digest. The witches basically have IBS and they cannot digest. Or maybe Crohn's. And they can't digest certain things. So their tummies hurt very bad.
Yes. I love that. Just like, it's not that it's going to kill them. They're just like, oh man, I really don't want to be like, on the tree stump for like 4 hours kind of thing. I just, I could, but like I won't. I love it, but it doesn't love me.
I'd really like to go grocery shopping tonight, but I can't get without 10 feet of
forest monsters with IBS and acid reflux.
Oh man.
Just not a good situation here.
Oh my god.
Even though Charles has all of these things, the cop's like, it doesn't matter. I have people that I can call that I'm going to get out of here. And Sale's already roasting in a cauldron, and that's where she's going to be, roasting slow. And so Charlie shoots him, which I feel was really justified. So as Charlie journeys through the tunnels very quietly, we see him talking to Sale in the past. She accuses him of not only not being present as a father, which is true, but also of not wanting her, saying that because of her anxiety, he's wished for a different daughter. He's crushed and tells her that everything about her is exactly what he asked for in a daughter. And in the present, Charlie finds Sale passed out and says that it's time for them to escape together. But treachery! The cop man didn't mention that the heat would make the smell-blocking stuff melt off Charles' skin. The issue ends with the witches in hot pursuit.
Dang, those witches.
Nika, what were your thoughts on this issue, hot on the heels of issue 4?
I thought I liked the witch lore. The witch lore was the best. I don't think I needed the scene between Charlie and Sailor. I feel like any person would resent another person who made them do something like that. But I liked the scene, like, with the cop, and then the cop, like, talking about what you can do to, like, what the witches have for weaknesses. And then, I guess that's what I liked the most about this issue. Sorry, I'm already thinking about the Netflix original show for this.
Oh, I'm sure. Hasn't this been one of the many comics that's been optioned and never done anything with?
Probably.
Really?
Oh, I don't know. I'm asking.
I assume.
Any comic by like a fairly well-known writer seems to have that happen with their more independent stuff, and very rarely does it come to fruition.
I think this would be this could be a great movie.
Oh, sure.
Oh, 100%. I'm going to say Nika Howard of other podcasts. I would disagree.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I welcome your disagreement.
Okay, I do agree that the Ferris wheel scene in the previous issue is kind of weird. And I get why she's like, fuck off. But I really enjoyed the bit where she was like, you don't even want me, like, you wished for a different daughter. And he's like, no, like, everything about you, like, all your flaws and like all the good stuff and all the bad stuff about you, that's why I love you, and that's exactly what I wished for in a child. Like, for some reason, to me, that like it came across as very sincere, and to me kind of cemented their relationship, because it is running in parallel with him, like, greased up like a pig scrambling through the underground trying to find her. And so it's like to me it kind of cemented that he's not like, oh, I should probably go find her because, like, I'm the dad in the story and that's what the dad does, he goes and finds the kid. It's like, no, he does actually, like, he does genuinely really love his daughter, like, as a whole, as a human being. So I liked it.
Well, and going based off of that, I can see also, like, this being the moment where their relationship changed and they become the father-daughter that we see at the beginning, that are joking and having fun.
Yeah.
So I can see your point. It makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to have to side with Kieran on this one. Sorry.
Yes.
Damn. No, that's fine.
I just dabbed.
Well,
in case anyone was wondering.
Well, you know, I'm going to be a sucker for this kind of content, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like a dad and his kid having a heart-to-heart. I mean, come on. But I thought it was a very human moment, like a pretty well laid out, because the thing that I think isn't done very well in a lot of books is like either the kids are characters and the parents equal parents, and that's the extent of their personality, or it's the other way around, where the parents are the characters and the kids' whole personality is that they are a kid. And it turns out that even kids are people and have their own personalities and dreams and fears. I know,
False.
right? It's crazy.
Lies.
So the fact that they were able to like talk through that issue is like, I found that very affecting personally. But like I said, it could not have been more like written specifically for a dad, which makes me just assume that you said Scott Snyder was the writer for this. I assume is a dad, but I don't know that for sure. But if he isn't, he did a good job of, capturing that
he is a dad
feeling. Okay. I was going to say he's got to be a dad, right? With the way this scene is written.
Has a real
overall,
dad energy.
I did exactly. Yeah. This whole book definitely has some dad energy.
Big dad energy.
So, I did enjoy this one. I think, I don't know if enjoy is the right word. It's a good issue, but it definitely, made me incredibly anxious reading the whole kid in peril and dad desperately trying to, like a world that refuses to help. Essentially, even the wife now is like, what's a kid? Never heard of one.
What's a child?
Yeah. And like the whole just the world against you while you're trying to save your child thing, like, yeah, that's made me pretty anxious reading the rest of the book. So that's just a theme throughout the last couple issues here for me. But well done. So all right. So let's get into the final issue. Issue 6. Nika, did you want to take that?
Sure, yeah. So issue 6 starts with Charlie and Sailor running throughout the tunnels in the burrow, trying to get away from the witches. They run into this spot where it's like a huge pit of like giant witches, which I don't know. Is that where they live? Is that their apartment complex? What's the living situation like? Who knows?
Wind control at the wazoo.
Yeah.
Hannibal Buress is furious.
It's basically showing like an awakening of all of these horrible monsters that start chasing Charlie and Sailor. They do manage to make it out of the tunnels and make a break for it back to the house. Once they arrive, freaking out as one would want to do in a situation like this.
I think it's fair.
Lucy also starts freaking out because I think she realizes at this point, like, oh shit, my husband is not cooperating with my plan.
This whole pledge thing is not going to plan here.
Yeah. Yeah. And while Charlie and Sailor are trying to get to a safe location, get away from the witches, they hear calling out from the cop and the rest of the townspeople saying the witches are coming. The witches are like in the woods watching them from the house. And Charlie sends Sailor off to the basement with a bag of like witch hunting equipment. I assume more rat bullets, pledge.
Just a rat.
Yeah, just a rat.
Food gluten pasta.
When Lucy gets up and smacks her daughter on the back of the head, sending her tumbling down the stairs.
God damn.
Why would a loving mother do this who wants to save her daughter? Because she did not. Treachery is afoot again. And so this is where it all comes out. Charlie calls to Lucy and says, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, It's quite simple. You haven't been paying attention. I'm saving us. We are going to stay married. We're going to have another baby. I got rid of your drinking. All of your bad habits, they're gone because I did this for us. Oh, and you know that little like 2-page story we saw at the very beginning about that kid who bashed the face in the tree? Mm-hmm. That was her grandfather.
Damn, boy.
Great-grandfather. I'm sorry. Great-grandfather. So it's like all revealed. Mention it all. It's all on the table. Talks about the signs. The reason why they had the she had the accident was because there was the witch, not a deer in the tree. Annie's death was because Lucy pledged her, but Annie wasn't good enough. She had to give up Sailor. So she was trying to like lead Charlie into it and like make it easy. They were going to burn Sailor's belongings right after he forgot. That's so fucked up.
It's deeply messed up.
To just think about like the idea, which I can rationally, you can say, okay, well, the reason why you feel like it's an awful thing to do is because you have a memory of that person. Like you can remember that relationship. But if you don't have a memory, like why would you just keep a box of someone's things that you never knew who that person was? Mm-hmm. So like it's a real like kind of fucked up situation to be aware that you would forget your child and still have feelings of wanting to save them.
Mm. Yeah, because they say like, oh, you'll forget all about them, but occasionally you'll feel that they used to be there, but you won't know who it is. And it's like, that seems awful. That seems worse.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
And I do think like this is a moment for Charles to like really again show off his big dad energy. He's giving up the chance to just kind of start over and have like no problems, live this perfect life. And he's like, no, I don't want that. I want our daughter. And I think that's like a big, like selfless moment he has. It's really wonderful. And then right after that scene, you hear a lot of pledged is pledged. The witches start coming out of the woods. Then pretty much all hell breaks loose. The witches come into the house. Charlie grabs a bottle of pledge, gives it to Sailor, and then you kind of see Sailor kind of like disappears, screams, disappears. Charlie runs away in the opposite direction, splatters some pledge on his wife and himself. He gets it, so he's trying to draw him away. And in the meantime, Sailor climbs out from the basement window with a spray paint can that you hook, or I don't really know what this thing is. Like you hook it up to your hose.
Thing.
Okay, so it's the picture is a hose that is hooked up to a canister that the air or the water runs through it and then pushes it out into a mist form. So Sailor takes the pledge, puts it in there, and starts spraying the whole town. Everyone gets hit. The cop grabs her. She takes a knife, or she takes something. She takes a sharp object out of her pocket, turns around, slashes his throat, kills the motherfucker.
It's so good.
Hops. Yeah. This moment was awesome. Hops in the car and drives away.
Yep.
And just to really rub some salt in that wound, the very end of it is kind of like the caption boxes are Charles giving like a speech about how, he's like launching his book and he's like basically like Sail has like saved me essentially. And like, she's shown me that like you can be brave, that kind of thing. And the last fucking page is him saying, and that's it. Time for the next chapter. But surprise, they never wrote volume 2.
Or maybe the next chapter is the next chapter of life, and that's why he didn't do it, because he was done with the story.
Mm-hmm. No, I think he just got offered more money to write Batman, eh?
Yeah, probably.
That's fair. All right. Well, let's get into final thoughts then. So I will kick us off. I don't usually, but I feel like I have some thoughts on this book.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Well, I feel like the ending, for one, you could take this as a whole and just be like, this is a standalone book and it's fine. Like, I had no problem with this being a standalone book. However, they do end it in a way that they could have continued the series. So it definitely felt like kind of like an old school horror movie where they resolve enough of it, but Freddy's going to be back in part 2.
Yeah. You don't ever see the witches like dying.
Right. And can they? Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, are they eternal? So I think overall, I liked the arcs that the characters kind of were going through. I kind of, you kind of suspect the mom pretty early on because she's being really dodgy about stuff. But the full on just being like, oh yeah, I wanted to start over and like murder our children to do so was pretty screwed up. Like that messed with my head pretty good. So I think it was pretty effective as far as like the way that the horror was written. And the art obviously really elevated the story, I think, because of the way it kind of transforms as the book goes and gets more and more like disjointed looking, fit really well with how the story was playing out. So I think overall pretty decent. Like, I would recommend it to people who are looking for a good horror book. Kieran?
I really enjoyed this. I again, as I said at the start, like, I don't normally find comics super creepy, but I thought this was really good. I didn't find it creepy in the same way that I did something like Uzumaki. It doesn't really have that same kind of like visceral quality to it, but I thought the story was really interesting. As you said, it was kind of refreshing to have like the parents are characters and the children are characters as well, and I kind of enjoyed their relationship. And I thought the witches were as like supernatural forces. I thought they were really interesting and very, very creepy. There were a lot of moments in the story that kind of made me go, well, that was gross and very unsettling. And I thought it did a really good job of building suspense and uncertainty in a medium that I don't think we're really necessarily used to that. Like, we're like with horror, like movies and things like that. There are a lot of really well-established like conventions and techniques for building suspense, but no, I don't really think there are in comics because I don't think it lends itself particularly well to horror. I'm open to being totally wrong.
Absolutely.
I'm open to being wrong.
No, I completely agree with you on that, at least.
Yeah. But I think they do a really good job of building tension and suspense and kind of like a fear of the unknown, because I think like even though we find out a lot about the witches and kind of how they operate, we still don't know very much about them and kind of like what they're going to do next and what they are capable of doing. So it's I would definitely recommend if you're like looking for something a bit spooky and a bit creepy. Obviously, like there is a bit of gore, but not like, I don't think any of it's particularly gratuitous. So yeah, it'd be a really solid recommend for me, I would say. Nika, what do you think of Wytches? You told us to read it.
One, I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it to people. I think that, to mimic what you said, Karen, I think that it is a wonderful comic that approaches horror and does it in a way that works for comics. I think it's really hard to do in a visual format that isn't film, but I think that this was done in a really well thought out, well written way. I think that overall the majority of the plot is, there isn't a lot of filler. Like, besides the scene that I didn't like, or the section that I didn't like, all of it is like very coherent and tight and concise, which I like. There's not a lot of people to have to remember or a lot of characters. There's not a lot of things to bog down the story. It stays pretty simple and true to itself. Definite trigger warnings. If anyone, which I feel like horror itself is a trigger warning for a lot of folks, but yeah, there's a lot of sensitive topics, but I think that they're handled in a way that isn't over the top and unnecessary and inappropriate. It's not like a gore slasher horror. This is more of just like the story is horrifying.
Yeah.
The ending. I had a question. In the version that you guys have, did you have the little bit at the end that is a different small story?
Yes,
Like
we did.
Pages?
Well, I did.
Okay.
I did, but I didn't notice it till later, so I did not actually get a chance to read it. What was that?
Okay. So I was thinking that maybe it would be like the first part to the next series. The story in the little bit in the back is a man goes to visit his sister. His sister just had a baby like a couple months ago. The man has pledged the baby and basically kind of does the same thing. Like, you're going to forget them. You'll have another kid. It's not a big deal. You're young. It's fine. But whenever the witches come, the woman like looks at the witch, and so then the witches like take them both away to eat them, I guess. So I was wondering if that was kind of leading it into maybe what volume 2's story could be. But honestly, I think it works really well as a standalone story, and I think more versions of it or more volumes of it would be unable to have the same effect. I think this is great. Horror comics are probably great for one trade, a few issues, something like that, to where you can keep it very fresh. And
I'm looking at you, The Walking
repetitive.
Dead, your fucking 28 volumes.
Yes!
I was thinking it.
Absolutely.
I was definitely thinking.
Because think how good Walking Dead would be after... Shit, I'd give them 2 trades. After they find, what is it, Sophia in the barn or whatever?
Yeah.
End it.
End it, yeah. Yeah.
Cut that in half, end it right after that. And that would have been so much better of a story.
Where did you piece out on The Walking Dead, out of curiosity?
The comic I read up until... Oh my God. I can't remember where everything goes, but they were in the town. Not the first town, but the second town?
Yeah.
Governor one or the
other one?
the other one.
Never quite made it that far. I pieced out at baby murder when the governor gets into the jail.
Oh,
yeah.
In the show, I pieced out way earlier than that.
Oh, same.
Yeah. The I think with the show, I watched the first and the second season, and then I pieced out. And then with the comic, I think I got like a good 15 or 16 volumes in. I think around about the same period as you, Nika. And then I was like, wow,
yeah,
this is the same thing over and over again. It's really fucking boring now.
Yes, it's so bad. And it's not, well, yeah, exactly. And so I think, however disappointing it is that we only have one volume of this, it's probably for the best.
Yeah, no, that is very true.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways. It would either be Sailor leaving and then eventually having to fight them again and actually needing to triumph over them to end the story, or just vignettes that are different characters. And like you said, then you fall into the problem of, is it just going to be the same loop?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you so much for coming on, Nika.
Thank you guys. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed having you on, and it's a good recommendation. So where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Nika_Howard. That's probably the best place.
But also podcasts.
Oh, but also on Greetings Adventures, and that's on Twitter at D&D Podcast, or Love to Hate, and I think that's Love to Hate Cast. I'm bad at some of the Twitters.
Oh, that's fine.
And the other one would be Wintercrest, and I think that's Wintercrest Pod.
I believe that is correct. All right. Kieran, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett. You can also check out my D&D podcast, which is for Crits and Giggles. That's at for CNG Podcast. Jonah, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, man. I am all over that Twitter. Twitter.com/ArealJonah is me. And also follow the Inks and Issues account because, comic book content and all.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for this week. We will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Must be the season of the witch. Must be the season of the witch, yeah.
metahumans or monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows, including Cthulhu and Friends, Dear Internet, Greetings Adventures, Transformation Sequence, and many more fantastic podcasts. You can help us make the show the best it can be by supporting us over at patreon.com/inksandissues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to also leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us spread the word. Want to interact with us on Twitter? You can find us at Inks and Issues or on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues. Or you can find our wonderful editor Justin at MRECOCK on Twitter. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh darn comics.